Welcome to the Private School Leader Podcast, where private school leaders learn how to thrive and not just survive as they serve and lead their schools. I strongly believe that it is possible to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And my passion is to help you figure out exactly how to do just that, right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Minkus. So I've been a private school leader for 32 years, and I've read a lot of books about leadership, about independent school leadership, about leadership in the corporate world, and there's really one book, as I reflect back on all the books that I've read, that would be beneficial for private school leaders to read. I would say that there's really only one book that I would say that every private school leader in the world should read. And I'm going to say that again. There's one book that I think that every private school leader in the world should read. And the book is called Hopes and Fears: Strengthening Relationships with Today's Independent School Parents by Robert Evans and Michael Thompson. And so on today's episode of the Private School Leader Podcast, I'm going to tell you about this amazing book and to try to convince you that if you only read one book this summer, read this one. So before we jump into that, I just want to remind you that I do have some spots open for coaching clients, and I've been working with coaching private school leaders for about 20 years, and I would encourage you to think if this is a step that you would like to take. If you've gained value from the podcast, if you could see how this could be beneficial for you to work one-on-one with a leadership coach, then head on over to theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching, and it's all laid out there for you. And I work with aspiring leaders who want to become a head of school. I work with new heads of school. Maybe you're a current leader that's starting out in a new school this fall, or maybe you just had a really tough, overwhelming year and you want to learn how to get from survival mode into thriving, and I can help you do that as well. So again, I'd love to work with you one-on-one, and check that out at theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching. And I'm also excited to share a new resource with you. You can tell already that this episode is going to be about working with independent school parents. And so I have a resource for you that is called How to Use Verbal Judo to Have Better Conversations with the Parents at Your School. And verbal judo is a term coined by Dr. George Thompson, and he has personally trained over 200,000 law enforcement officers in North America. And it's really about the art of persuasion, how to use words effectively to de-escalate conflict and resolve disputes, and just using words to just improve high-pressure situations. And so that sounds a lot like some of our interactions with school parents. And so I've taken several strategies from the book that George Thompson and Jerry Jenkins wrote called Verbal Judo, The Gentle Art of Persuasion. I've taken several strategies and just applied them very specifically to your life as a private school leader. And it's a 9-page PDF that you can get for free over at theprivateschoolleader.com/judo. And that's just a free gift for you to say thanks for listening to the podcast. And again, grab that guide about verbal judo over at theprivateschoolleader.com/judo. All right, so I want to get a couple things out of the way. And that is, first of all, this book that I'm talking about today, I don't benefit in any way financially if you buy this book. The link will be in the show notes at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 85. But the link is going to take you directly to the NAIS website. This is a book published by the National Association of Independent Schools. And the price of the book is $36.50. I do use affiliate links for most of the other books that I list on my website or that I mention in the show notes of different episodes. I have a list of the top 10 leadership books and the top 10 productivity books for private school leaders, and that's at theprivateschoolleader.com/top 10. But those affiliate links, I get a 4%, 4% of the price commission of the price of the book, but it doesn't increase the cost of the book to you. So the reason that I'm linking you directly to the NAIS website is because the cheapest I can find this book on Amazon is $142 for some reason. So I don't really care about the affiliate income from this book. I just want you to get your hands on it because I feel that strongly about how beneficial this is to private school leaders. So I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way that, I'm going to be pushing a book here, but I want to make it clear that it comes from a place of authenticity and not trying to gain some financial benefit. But, NAIS's website, the link in the show notes is going to take you right there. And it's going to get you that book for $36.50, which is the cheapest that I could find it anywhere on the internet. Okay, so if you know me, I like lists, 6 reasons why, 5 steps to this, 6 strategies to do, blah, blah, blah. And so I would like to, today on this episode, I would like to give you the 6 reasons to buy Hopes and Fears. Okay, so this book that I am making this bold statement that I think that every private school leader in the world should have a copy of this book and read a copy of this book. I want to tell you why, and I'm going to give you 5 reasons why to buy Hopes and Fears by Thompson and Evans. All right. Number 1, dealing with parents is time-consuming and stressful. Number 2, this book helps to explain why parents act the way that they do. Number 3, the authors know what they're talking about. Number 4, the advanced toolkit for dealing with the 5 percenters will change your life. Number 5, this book can help you grow your faculty in the area of building parent relationships. And number 6, the first edition was fantastic, but the second edition is even better. Okay, so reason number 1 for purchasing the book Hopes and Fears by Thompson and Evans is that dealing with parents is time-consuming and stressful. So I want you to just do a brief thought exercise, and I want you to envision a pie chart. And then on that pie chart, there are the different ways that you spend time at school. There are and in general, also like what takes up your headspace. But let's just take the pie and say that this is going to be a percentage of the pie is going to be student discipline. A percentage of the pie is going to be teacher issues. A percentage of the pie is going to be board and finance and whatever, okay? But there's going to be a piece of pie on this pie chart that is the parent slice, okay? And however big that parent slice is for you, and let's face it, for most of us, it is bigger than what we would like for it to be. It becomes time-consuming and stressful, and sometimes we just go in circles and we, all of these things, and especially when we deal with some of the more outlier parents, which I'll talk about in a moment. But I feel strongly that reading this book and applying what you learn will make that slice smaller on your pie chart. So if you'd like to make the parent slice of the pie chart of how you spend your day, if you'd like to make that smaller, I encourage you to buy Hopes and Fears. All right, number 2, I'm giving you 6 reasons why I think that you should buy this book. And remember, the title of today's episode is that if you read one book this summer, read this one. Obviously, the timing, if you're listening to this in real time, it's right around the beginning of your summer, and you might actually have a few minutes to read a book. And so my hope is that you will, if you only have time to read one, that it'll be this one. Okay, so number 2, reasons to buy this book. This book helps to explain why parents act the way that they do. So in a moment, I'm going to tell you that the authors know what they're talking about, and I'm going to give their background, but they're both psychologists, and there's a psychology behind why parents act the way that they do, and there's a very good reason why this book is called Hopes and Fears. And the anxiety that surrounds what parents feel about their children, the hopes and fears, and throw in there the dreams that they have for their children, that the authors propose that there's a collision in our private schools. And the collision is between the fears that the parents have and the fears that the teachers have. Okay? So I'm going to read you the 4 fears that the authors, Evans and Thompson, put forth as the parent fears. And then there's 3 teacher fears. And I want you to think about how these collide at school, and then think about how the collateral damage of that collision is anxiety, stress, and emotion, and difficult meetings with parents. Okay, so parents, these are the 4 fears that the authors put forth. Number 1, will my child be safe? Number 2, the teacher may judge my parenting negatively. Number 3, the teacher has huge power over my child. And number 4, my most cherished dreams for my child might not come true. Okay? So those are the parent fears. And then the teacher fears, number 1, my mistakes will be on display in front of the distorting eye of children. Number 2, I will see the student differently than parents do, and this may cause conflict. And number 3, administrators will not protect me from powerful parents. So the parents have fears, the teachers have fears, and when those fears collide, that's when we have the emotional eruptions and the laundry list of challenges that come along with some of our parents at our schools. And so I want to pause there because I said some, and I'll get to the 5%ers when I get to number 4 on this list. But I want to just remind everyone that, most of our parents, they're workable, or they're fine, or they're even great. And so I don't want to paint some picture that all private school parents are bad, or that all private school parents are, overly emotional, or that they're crazy, or that they're, whatever, or that they're bullies or whatever. I mean, some of them are, a subset of them are. But again, when it comes to their children, when it comes to our own children, for those of us that do have children, there are fears and anxieties that are attached to it. And then the teachers who work with these children for 7 or 8 hours a day, they have fears as well. So again, that's just a little bit of a disclaimer. I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush about parents, quote unquote, in general, but just to say that parents of independent school children, they're a very, very specific subset of parents in the world, and there are ways to effectively deal with them and to effectively build relationships with them, and that's what this book is all about. Okay, so number 1 on our list, my reasons why you should buy this book. Number 1 is dealing with parents is time-consuming and stressful. Number 2, this book helps to explain why parents act the way that they do. And number 3, the authors know what they are talking about. Okay. We often, when we're checking out a book, we'll, maybe if it's unfamiliar to us who the authors are, we'll check it out and kind of see what their credentials are, what their social proof is, to see, is this a worthwhile read? And so Robert Evans is a psychologist, author, and school consultant, former teacher, and school and family therapist with 40 years in independent schools, and consulted at least 1,800 different independent schools. Robert Evans graduated from independent school. His kids were lifers at independent schools, and his grandkids also attended independent schools. So that's Robert Evans. Michael Thompson, clinical psychologist, author, school consultant, 50 years working in independent schools. Consulted over 700 schools. Started out as a middle school teacher and then a school counselor. Just like Robert Evans, he also graduated from an independent school. His kids were lifers at independent schools, and his grandkids attended independent schools. So if you do the math, that's over 90 years of experience between Robert Evans and Michael Thompson, consulted at over 2,500 different independent schools. And so the whole phrase, you know how you talk to someone and you're like, yeah, they get it. Okay. Evans and Thompson, they get it. And it's very apparent when you read the book. And so I'm just putting this out there because if you don't own it, if you haven't read it, again, I'm trying to persuade you that if you read one book this summer, make sure that it's this one, that Thompson and Evans, they get it. And what they do as well, in addition to their knowledge, institutional knowledge, is that they apply their background in psychology to the ways that some parents act and why they act the way that they do. And it creates more insight, I think. It illuminates some of the behavior, but then some of the strategies that they give are so excellent because it's coming from a place of analysis of the behavior. Sometimes we just shake our heads and can't figure out why parents act the way that they do. It's going to be spelled out for you in the book. We've come to reason number 4 on reasons why you should buy Hopes and Dreams by Robert Evans and Michael Thompson. All right. Number 4 is the advanced toolkit for dealing with the 5%ers will change your life. I feel strongly about this. Even with the first edition came out in 2021, and then earlier this year in 2024, they came out with the new updated second edition. I'll talk about that in number 6, the difference between the two. But just in the couple of years since I've read the book, I've applied several of the strategies, and that's after 30 some years, and I thought I knew what I was doing with parents. And for the most part, I did. But especially with the 5%ers, this advanced toolkit, and it was super helpful. And so just to be clear on what that means, Evans and Thompson say that in their dealings with over 2,500 schools over all those years of being consultants, that in their opinion, it breaks down about 95%, 5% with parents. 95% are workable, can be reasonable, are fantastic, are awesome, are wonderful, anywhere on that continuum of like you can at least work with them. Might take more effort with some than others, but 95%. But 5%, the 5%ers, you can't reason with them, you can't use logic with them because they're coming from a place of emotion. And the advanced toolkit does a couple of things. A part of one of the chapters earlier in the book explains maybe how the 5%ers got to where they are and why they act the way that they do. And then there's a whole chapter that's the advanced toolkit for dealing with the 5%ers. And they break them down into these 3 categories. And as I give you these titles, you'll probably have a parent's face that will pop into your head from your current parents or a former parent. So there are 3 categories that they put forth in the book of the 5%ers are the anxious and incompetent, the non-responsive, and the intimidators. So I'll hit that one more time. Anxious and incompetent, the non-responsive, and the intimidators. And won't get into all of that, but again, I just feel like the advanced toolkit, that one chapter, is worth the price of the book. What would you pay to have a better meeting with someone that falls under one of those 3 categories? So again, not to beat a dead horse, but number 4, advanced toolkit, it's worth the price of the book. The 5%, how to deal with the 5%ers, that chapter can change your life. Okay, reason number 5, why I think that if you read one book this summer, you should read Hopes and Fears by Evans and Thompson, is because this book can help you grow your faculty in the area of building parent relationships. So it's not just about you as the school leader growing. The book in general will grow you, and then you can grow your staff by teaching them some of the principles. But chapter 13 in particular is called Training and Supporting Teachers, and that chapter's excellent. And then they give you 5 specific tasks to help you with training and support. And in addition to that, they make PD easier by giving you discussion questions at the back of the book. This is in the second edition. I'm not sure if the discussion questions are in the first edition. The link that I'll give you in the privateschoolleader.com/episode 85 is for the second edition that came out February 2024. But there are discussion questions that are in sessions for teachers, administrators, and for the head of school. And so, just in general, it's like it's not just you, it's your faculty, it's your staff, and building those parent relationships. You want that to all grow. You want it to be a high tide that raises all the boats. This book can check that box for you and get your faculty moving in the correct direction. And then finally, reason number 6 for reading or for purchasing this book, Hopes and Fears by Evans and Thompson. Reason number 6, the first edition was fantastic. The second edition is way better. So I mentioned the first edition. That was the one that I purchased a few years ago when it came out. Came out in 2021. I probably purchased it later that year or in 2022. And the expanded second edition, here are some things that are new in this second edition. The work, put to work the authors I took this right off of the the description for the book on the NAIS website when it explained 5 points as far as what's new about the expanded second edition. Number 1, put to work the author's straightforward, empathic advice on how to reset expectations for student behavior and enlist parent support as you do. So again, we're all talking about student behavior and how important expectations are. I hear that a lot from my coaching clients and from people who email me that listen to the podcast. So you're going to get some help there. The second thing that's new about the expanded second edition, communicate better with families and educators that have different backgrounds and assumptions about school. And so our schools are becoming more diverse in so many different ways, whether it is economically or racially or socially or with sexual orientation, or all of the above and a mixture of all of the above. There's so many different ways that our schools are becoming more diverse. This can help with that as well. The third reason the second edition is better is it helps you deal with the special dilemmas that arise when the parent is also a teacher at the school. And that is a very, very difficult situation. I did an episode on that subject. I'll link it in the show notes about when your kids attend the school that you lead. And so very sage advice about what to do when your kids, how to communicate with the parent when the parent is also a teacher at the school and you're the head of school or a division head. All right. Get inspired by sample values contracts for reframing parent partnerships and by a model letter to enlist parent support for improving student behavior. And again, this is in the appendices. Sample values contracts, that's something that's starting to happen more and more in our private schools, in our independent schools, is kind of a good faith, acceptable behavior, shared values contract. And so they give you some examples of that, and also an example of a letter that you can use to try to get parental support. And then also there's the last piece in here about the second edition is that we're in a post-COVID world of schools now, and this book was written with that in mind. And so there are some things in there that just you and I both know that things have changed since COVID as far as parent expectations and just a lot of different things. And so that is addressed as well. Okay, so the big takeaways from today's episode, the 6 reasons to buy the book Hopes and Fears by Robert Evans and Michael Thompson, especially the second edition. Number 1, dealing with parents is time-consuming and stressful. So if you would like to reduce the size of the piece of pie on your pie chart on how you spend your time, this book will do that for you. Number 2, this book helps to explain why parents act the way that they do. And it talks about the fears that the parents have and the fears that the teachers have. And when those collide, that's when we have challenges in our schools. Number 3, the authors know what they're talking about. Over 50 combined years of experience consulting with 2,500 schools and dealing with the parents at those schools. Number 4, the advanced toolkit for dealing with the 5 percenters will change your life. Remember, the 5 percenters are the unresponsive, the anxious and incompetent, and the intimidators. Number 5, the book can help you grow your faculty in the area of building parent relationships. And number 6, the first edition was fantastic, and the second edition is even better. So your call to action is to strongly consider purchasing Hopes and Fears by Robert Evans and Michael Thompson. I think you knew that was coming as far as your call to action. I will put the link to the NAIS website. This is the least expensive price that I've been able to find anywhere online. And you can find that link at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 85. So let's wrap it up. Since we're talking about parent communication, I'll remind you that I have a guide for you called The 7 Steps to Having Successful Meetings with Upset Parents. And this is an 11-page PDF that gives you step-by-step plan to have better meetings with the parents at your school. Every good coach has a game plan. Every good teacher has a lesson plan. And too many private school leaders, in my opinion, don't have a plan when they sit down to meet with an upset parent. Well, now you have a plan. And you can grab this guide at theprivateschoolleader.com/meeting. That's the 7 steps to having successful meetings with upset parents. That's free to you as a resource over at theprivateschoolleader.com/meeting. And then one last reminder, if you're listening to this in real time and summer is beginning for you, just a reminder about Thrive Academy. It's an online course that I've built for you, and it can help you go from being stressed out, discouraged, overwhelmed, feeling burnout, to thriving and being happy and fulfilled and wanting to do this for a long time. And there's 7 modules, 39 lessons, 9 hours of video content, an 86-page workbook with guided notes and reflection questions and habit tracking calendars and all kinds of things that can help you step by step, strategy by strategy, go from survival mode to thriving as a private school leader. And you can get more information about that at theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. And then last thing is just a reminder about coaching. If you're interested in pursuing that and finding out more about working with me one-on-one, just head on over to theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching, and all the information is there for you. And I would love to work with you one-on-one. Shoot me an email at mark.o.minkus@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. I'll say it one more time since the link is there. You can find show notes for today's episode by going to theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 85. And a new episode comes out every week of this podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. If you would review and rate the podcast, that helps the algorithm push it out as suggested content to private school leaders all over the world. And I'm on Instagram at The Private School Leader and on Twitter at The PS Leader. And I ask you every week that if you get value from any of these episodes, please share it with another school leader in your life and an aspiring school leader, an aspiring leader at your school. And let's get that content out there and try and help as many leaders as possible. And I've been your host, Mark Minkus. I want to say how much I appreciate you and all of the hard work that you're doing for the lucky kids and teachers at your school. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule this week to listen today. And I'll see you next time right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And until then, always remember to serve first, lead second, and make a difference.